Bridget Marsh, Executive Vice President and Deputy General Counsel here at the LSTA. And in this podcast, we're going to be talking about the LSTA's DQ structure, disqualified institution structure. So when we modified or updated our model credit agreement provisions several years ago, in fact, back in 2014, we included a DQ structure. And in fact, that was a departure from how we normally do things at the LSTA, because typically we wait until the market has coalesced around a set of terms, and then we memorialize those terms in our own documents. But it had come to our attention with the DQ lists that people drafting credit agreements were not taking into account secondary market practices and the trading of loans in our market. And in fact, one of the things that we had become aware of was the use of the term null and void. So they were saying, if you enter into a trade with a disqualified institution, that trade will be null and void. Okay, so we had to come in and we thought about the perspective of the borrower, we thought about the perspective of the lenders, the agent, and also, well, we are the trade association for the loan market. We thought about the liquidity of the loan market and how the use of these DQ structures could really impede it if it wasn't handled properly. So the LSTA weighed in. We took what we thought were the best elements of the structures out there in existing credit agreements. So when we devised our structure, we did have it apply not only to assignments but also participations. So if the borrower had identified an entity out there in the loan market that they simply did not want in their syndicate, then our structure said that entity couldn't come in as what I like to say, capital L lender, and nor could it come in as a participant via our participation. Now, we also allow for a list to be created by the borrower before the date of the credit agreement, and that borrower pretty much can put whomever they want on the list. As far as updating that list after the date of the credit agreement, so after the credit agreement has gone effective, we do allow the borrower to update the list, and but there's an important restriction. We say the borrower can only update it for competitors. Now, that makes sense. The borrower doesn't want its private information being shared with competitors, etc. So we can't, of course, define competitor, but we do have a drafting footnote which says that parties really should specify it as clearly as possible with reference to the borrower and with reference to the borrower's particular business. So, what if you're in a scenario and you do want to update the list and the borrower has that right? Well, we say they can update the list for the competitors after the date of the credit agreement, but they have to give notice. So in our structure, the list has to be shared on the public side of the relevant platform that's being used for that particular credit. This just has to be done. If you're going to have the list apply not only to assignments and to participations, you have to share the list. And this is a real bugaboo because we get complaints that agents don't share the list with lenders. I mean, if you're a trader and you're doing a trade, you have to know if your counterparty is going to be able to come in as an assignee or as a participant. So we do say, the agent is authorized to post the list to the public side, and then of course it can be shared with the lenders and with traders, etc. Now, as I said, what if you're a trader, you've entered into a loan trade, but you haven't settled it, and you see, whoops, the borrower has updated it, you got a few days notice, but your trade was already outstanding, and now your counterparty has in fact been added to the list. What do you do? Well, fortunately, hopefully there aren't, I know there are going to be some, but hopefully we clamp down and credit agreements no longer say the trade is null and void. We don't want that. We say, okay, parties, go ahead, settle that loan trade, and then we the borrower specified remedy. So the borrower under our structure can then yank that competitor from the syndicate, and the price that they have to pay the competitor for the loan, well, this is another thing. We're a trade association. We cannot weigh in on price. So we provide the three options. Are they going to do it at market, at par, or at the price paid? So remember, if you're following our forms, you've got to complete that. We just have all three square brackets, and I know there was a deal out there where they didn't complete that. So of course the borrower is going to choose the cheapest, but negotiate that up front and then decide. So just as a recap, if parties start messing around with one element of the LSTA's DQ structure, the whole thing sort of begins to unravel. It's really a package deal. We really do urge the market to follow the language in our model credit agreement provisions. And in fact, we've also adopted it in our investment grade revolver because they too, we're incorporating DQ structures in the investment grade world. So I should say also one final point with respect to DQ lists. They survive an event of default. So typically, the borrower's right to consent to each assignment falls away upon an event of default, but the DQ list survives. And I think that's why it's become quite popular in our market to follow these DQ structures within credit agreements. Hope you find that helpful.